the star that refused to die. The Varnari Emperor, sovereign of 900 systems, is dying. He is not just a ruler. His body is fused with a living star core, and when he dies, the energy that powers half the galaxy's warp lanes will collapse with him. Billions will be stranded. Empires will fall. No alien doctor can stabilize him. No AI can interpret the readings. Then a whisper from the ancient archives. There was once a healer from Terra who spoke the language of stars. She vanished decades ago. The galaxy considers Terra a backwater planet, barely evolved. But the Varnari have no other choice. They send for the last hope of civilization. Dr. Elira Voss, a Terran xenobiologist and forgotten legend. And what she finds in the Emperor's core is not a disease. It is a secret, a choice, and a threat to the stars themselves. There were places in the galaxy where starlight whispered secrets to the dead. The small moon Elira Voss called home was one of them. She lived in exile near Saturn's rings, tending to broken terraformers who never questioned her past. She liked it that way, quiet, hidden, away from what she used to be, chief bioarchitect of the galactic core. Until today, a black comet-shaped vessel tore through the moon's atmosphere without making a sound. Soldiers in translucent armor stepped out, eyes like static, voices like machine hymns. Elira Voss, one of them said, "The Star Emperor is dying, and he's asking for you." She was taken aboard the Imperial Ark, a myth more than a ship. 5 kilometers of anti-light armor, floating through vacuum like a cathedral severed from time. Inside, nothing made sense. Rooms shifted like puzzles. Halls bent toward distant suns. And in the center, a throne of burning glass, bathed in starlight, where the Star Emperor lay. His skin cracked like molten obsidian. His veins pulsed with supernova fire. He was whispering something again and again. The star is not dying. It's being eaten. Elira froze. She had seen this before, but it wasn't supposed to exist. Hovering above his chest, glowing like an unborn sun, was a stellar parasite, small, coiled, pulsing with intelligence. Not organic, not alien, artificial, designed. She felt its hum in her skull. Where did he go? Elira asked. Before this started, the lead alien physician replied. He entered the Kuiper Rift. A forbidden system. She whispered. You shouldn't have brought back what you found there. The parasite twitched, as if it understood. The Emperor opened his eyes, barely. Elira. His voice was flame and thunder. I saw them. The ones who came before stars. They planted this in me. It's rewriting the laws. Elira leaned in close, heart hammering. They want to cut out of you, she said. He nodded weakly. They don't understand, she continued. If they sever the bond now, half the galaxy dies instantly. The alien doctors went silent. Their neural links flickered in panic. You do that, she said, and the stars themselves will scream. The room dimmed suddenly. The parasite looked at her, not physically, but through memory. She could feel it dragging up her past, reshaping it, feeding on it. She saw her father's face as he died on a failing colony ship. She saw the last child she couldn't save. She saw the day she walked away from the core and the day she knew she'd return. The parasite whispered, not in words but emotion. You are ready. The Emperor spasmed. His body ignited with cosmic fire, bolts of reality cracking around him. A floating assistant screamed. Neutrino bleed detected. He's collapsing space-time. Elira stepped back, but not in fear, in decision. He's not dying, she said. He's becoming. The doctors prepared to incinerate the parasite. She drew a molecular scalpel and put it to one of their throats. Stop. The room froze. Her hands didn't shake. If you kill it, she said, you kill time itself. The Emperor looked at her with cosmic eyes. Elira, should I let go? Here it was. The choice. His will, or the galaxy's survival. 10 trillion souls on one side, the Emperor on the other, and her in between, with the truth no one else knew. It's not invading him, she said quietly. It chose him. He's becoming a beacon, a signal. To what? A doctor asked. To the ones who built the stars. And then the stars outside the ark shifted. Not moved, shifted. rearranged like symbols in a forgotten language. Elira looked out the viewport, and her breath caught. She understood. It's not about war, she whispered. It's about memory. They're reactivating him as a message. But for whom? A warning blared. Unknown contact. 11 anomalies. Speed, faster than light. The Ark's defense systems locked in, but screens turned black. The parasite inside the Emperor began to glow, brighter than ever. He screamed, but the sound shattered into silence. And then he vanished. Just light. Just emptiness. The throne remained. But he was gone. So was the parasite. Elira fell to her knees. Everyone stared. And then the stars blinked. Not twinkled, blinked. Synchronized. 12 stars across 5 galaxies. All pulsed at the same second. A signal. A countdown. A summoning. Elira stood slowly. Her voice cracked. He's not dead. He's been uploaded into the structure of the galaxy itself. A voice from behind. One of the alien officers, trembling. Then what happens when he wakes up? Elira looked back at the blinking stars. Her face was calm. That depends, she said, on whether we still deserve to exist. The first time Elira Voss synchronized with a star, she was 11 years old. A refugee ship had drifted too close to a binary flare system in the Vega corridor. Its shielding had failed. Dozens of alien children were burning from the inside out, not from heat, but from chaos. The sun's twin hearts pulsed at opposing rhythms. No AI could decode it. No medicine could stabilize the neural collapse it triggered. Elira had walked into the reactor room barefoot, placed her hand on the hull, and closed her eyes. Quiet, she whispered. You're too loud. Breathe together. The ship stopped shaking. The flares calmed. The children lived. That day, the aliens didn't call her human. They called her resonant. Back in the present, aboard the Imperial Ark, she stood before the empty throne. The Star Emperor had vanished, or ascended, or something in between, but his consciousness remained, humming through the bulkhead. Echoes of breath in metal, a presence between pulses of time. The doctors were afraid. The ship AI was locked out, but Elira was calm. She knelt, pressed her palm to the throne's base, and she whispered, I'm here. I remember how to listen. The healing process was not mystical. It was invasive. A neural thread halo unfolded from her temple and laced itself into the throne's black glass. One by one, her senses were devoured by light. Not bright, not painful, infinite. She descended into the Star Emperor's neural storm. At first, static, then heat, then stars. She saw his memories like shattered mirrors. Childhood beneath a moon that never rose. His coronation, alone, because no species could survive, standing beside him. And the moment he entered the Kuiper Rift, where something entered him, then she felt it. Another presence. Subtle at first, like being watched through cracked glass. Then stronger. Prying. Testing. It wasn't the Emperor. It was behind him. Watching her. Feeling her. It didn't speak in words. It used sensation. It showed her a memory, but not hers. A galaxy burning. No sound. Planets cracking open like eggshells. Not war. Not rebellion. Reset. And then silence. For billions of years. Until now. Elira recoiled. The psychic link shuddered. Her own heart began to mirror the Emperor's. Too fast. Too slow. Out of sync with her own body. What are you? She whispered. The second presence pulsed once. Not an answer. A test. She felt her own memories being replayed back at her, but altered. Her father's voice, but filled with contempt. The alien children dying instead of surviving. Her hands, covered in blood she never spilled. False memories. She screamed. Suddenly, the Emperor's voice emerged, stronger this time, from inside the storm. Don't trust it. It remembers everything except mercy. She realized the truth in that moment. This second mind wasn't inside him. It was older than him. It was riding his mind like a ship. And she had just stepped aboard. Her healing impulse kicked in. She reached toward the Emperor's core, his real self, weak, flickering, but intact. The parasite, or whatever it was, tried to block her with phantom visions' emotional attacks. She pressed harder, pushed through sorrow, through fear, through guilt. Until she touched him, the true emperor. "Help me," he whispered, and suddenly she was back, eyes open, gasping, blood on her lip, nose bleeding, but the throne was glowing. And behind her, the doctors were watching her in horror. "What did you see?" one asked. Her voice was steady now. "Cold. The parasite isn't coding him, it's decoding us." Confusion. She stood and faced the room. "It's not here to kill the emperor. It's here to learn how to mimic him." "Why?" someone asked. She didn't answer. Because the answer terrified even her. "So it can become emperor everywhere." Outside the ark, 3 stars blinked again, in unison, as if answering a call. Elira felt a thought in her spine, not her own. "You passed the test," resonant. "One of you remembers how to hear." She turned toward the stars. Her eyes narrowed. "Then listen back. We're not afraid of you. We're just waking up." The chamber was colder than before. Not physically, but in presence. Elira stood still, the emperor's body before her, glowing dimly under the last flickers of starlight. The energy flowing through him was no longer just unstable. It felt orchestrated, timed, as if his death was scheduled, not a tragedy, but a plan unfolding. Elira's breath slowed. She withdrew from a healing trance and rushed to the ship's central archive vault, accessing restricted sectors with the override codes the Emperor himself had whispered to her 3 days ago, delirious in fever. The screen lit up with fragmented logs, corrupted files, and encrypted fragments of ancient doctrine. She parsed through them one by one, until a single intact phrase emerged, pulsing with residual authority. Soul Ascendant Protocol. Activation coded upon star death. A chill climbed her spine. She opened the file. Words, voices, half-erased maps, genetic diagrams. The parasite wasn't a parasite at all. It was a key, a weapon designed not to feed, but to unlock a system buried across space itself. A network buried beneath known warp lanes, linking stars not for travel, but for ignition. Centuries ago, a human faction known as the Soul Ascendants had gone dark. Official records claimed they were wiped out in a political purge. But that was a lie. They had gone underground, slipping from time, working in silence. Their doctrine was clear and horrifying in its simplicity. Rule the stars by controlling the power within them. They believed the galaxy was too chaotic for freedom, too fragmented to survive. Only through the collapse of the current order and the rise of those who understood stellar manipulation could lasting unity be achieved. They had seeded agents across the Terran Empire, hidden tools in plain sight. And their masterpiece was the Emperor himself. She scrolled through anatomical logs and realized the parasite was a synthetic stellar matrix, designed to bond with the human nervous system. It lived off starlight. The host body amplified its signal. Once that signal reached critical fusion, upon the host's death, the matrix would release a hypergravitic pulse into the warp lanes. A pulse that would collapse space itself. Not everywhere, just enough. Key hyperlanes, major star systems, core imperial routes. Enough to fracture the galaxy's balance. Enough to let the Soul Ascendants emerge from the ashes. She leaned back in the dark, her heart pounding. The Emperor's condition wasn't natural. He wasn't dying from age or disease. He was being triggered. She returned to the chamber. The Emperor lay still, his golden eyes barely open, breath shallow. As she placed her hands over his chest, he stirred and whispered, "You found it." Elira hesitated, then asked, "How long have you known?" He smiled weakly. "Longer than I want to admit. I thought I could fight it. You let them use you as a detonator. They said it was the only way. A galaxy this large doesn't bend. It has to break. Then you rebuild." She stepped back. "You're not the Emperor. You're a time bomb in a crown." "Then stop me," he murmured. She didn't speak. His skin began to flicker again, patterns flowing under the surface like solar flares wrapped in skin. She reached into the healing trance. But something pushed back. A presence. Cold. Older than him. Watching her. Not curious. Judging. She gasped. It was the second mind. The one she'd felt before. "You are the flaw," it said from inside her mind. The voice didn't sound human. It didn't sound alien either. It was structured, mathematical, precise. You are not part of the ascended design. Your genome is irregular. What are you? We are memory, purpose, correction, and this host is our gate. She tried to disconnect, but her body refused. The link had locked. She was being pulled deeper. Visions spiraled, cities of burning metal, solar systems collapsing like lungs exhaling for the last time. Not destruction. Pattern. Calculation. Like controlled detonation across a cosmic blueprint. The voice whispered again. He dies, we rise. Who is we? You call us parasite. We are ascension. We were born before your empires, before your language. Your ancestors made a deal they did not understand. We gave them energy. They gave us vessels. You're not from Earth, Illyris said. You're not even from this galaxy. We are from stars that failed. And from their failure, we learn. Illyris snapped out of the trance and fell to the floor, gasping. The chamber's starlight dimmed for a moment, as if it, too, feared what was coming. Back in the med bay, Illyra pulled up her own scans, taken by the ship's AI earlier that week. She noticed something strange. A strand in her DNA had activated. A mirror sequence, one that matched the parasite's control structure. She froze. Her genes weren't just unique, they were reactive. The same biology that let her feel stars now let her interface with something far more dangerous. Her people hadn't evolved this by chance. They had been built as fail-safes. At some point in deep Terran history, her bloodline had been engineered not to embrace stellar fire, but to stop it, which meant she could override the detonation, sever the link, stop the collapse, but only by anchoring the parasite to herself. She would survive, but the parasite would live in her, and the soul ascendants, they would come for her next. Back in the Emperor's chamber, she placed her hand over his heart. You were their weapon, she whispered, but you don't have to die for their war. His eyes met hers, faint and shimmering. I'm tired. I know. If you take it, you'll carry the curse. I already do. The Emperor exhaled, and for the first time, the flames under his skin dulled. She reached into the bond, not to heal, but to intercept. Her cells began copying the Matrix's data, rewriting its resonance. The second mind screamed, You do not belong. She gritted her teeth, whispering, Neither did you. The transfer began. Every light in the chamber dimmed, and a tremor passed through the ship. Illyra screamed as the parasite ripped through her nervous system. Her body writhed. The stars outside flickered in response. And then, silence. She collapsed. The Emperor lay still, eyes closed. No pulse. Gone. But the galaxy did not collapse. Not yet. A whisper echoed in her mind. This is not the end. We are patient. She sat up slowly, starlight flickering now in her own veins. The galaxy had been spared, for now. But the cost had changed. The key wasn't dead. It had simply changed hands. And in the deepest sectors of the void, something ancient had turned its gaze toward her. They would come, but she would be ready. She always had been. The Emperor twitched. His fingers clenched at the thin sheets as the veins of light beneath his skin pulsed in violent rhythm. Not golden anymore, blue-white streaks of pain raced through his body like lightning caught in glass. Illyra stood near, motionless, sensing the pressure shift. She hadn't spoken to him since the transfer. Her bones still ached from the parasite's resistance. The starlight now lived in her blood, dim and quiet for now. His voice came like breath dragged over broken glass. End it, please. She turned to him slowly. He looked like he had aged a century in a single hour. You don't understand, he whispered. It hurts, every cell burning. I can feel the collapse ticking behind my eyes. You stopped the signal, but it's still inside me. Still spreading. I know. Then why? Why not end it? Because killing you won't stop the pulse, she said softly. Not anymore. It's transferred. Mutated. It's nested. He stared at her, uncomprehending. Then what are we waiting for? I found a way, she said, to delay the detonation. A buffer. My body's resonance, it can interfere. Like throwing static into a song. How long? She didn't answer. Don't lie to me, healer. Not long, she said. A few days. A week if I can stay conscious. The Emperor laughed, bitter and broken. A week, to save a galaxy that wanted me to be its bomb. From behind the starlight curtain, Juno stormed in, her short white coat streaked with dust and sweat. She had been monitoring the anomaly levels outside, starfields rippling unnaturally, subtle distortions across deep space telemetry. Juno's voice cracked. "You can't do this." Elira didn't look at her. "I have to." "No, you don't." Juno stepped closer, eyes wide with fury and fear. "Let the galaxy burn. Let the Empire rot. They exiled you, remember? Left you to die on Titan's moons like garbage." "They didn't exile me," Elira said. Her voice was calm. "Final. I walked away. Same difference." "No." She finally looked at Juno, and her eyes weren't angry. They were kind. "I walked away to remember who I am. Because if I had stayed, I would have become like them." Juno's hands trembled. "You're going to die. Someone has to." "No. You deserve to live. You saved lives. Whole colonies. You gave up everything for people who never even knew your name." Elira stepped toward her, gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I'm not doing this for them," she said. "Not for the Empire. Not even for the stars." "Then why?" "I'm doing it so the next generation doesn't inherit a sky full of silence." The silence that followed was heavy. She returned to the Emperor's side, placing both hands over his chest. The starlight responded instantly, curling upward like smoke drawn to a flame. Her breathing slowed. The bond opened. Again. This time, she didn't resist. The pain hit immediately, spikes of white-hot static across her spine, her nerves lighting up like war drums. The parasite recognized her now, no longer fighting her. It was adapting, linking. She forced herself deeper, past the first layer of pain, into the pulse. There it was, the chain seed, sitting in the core of his nervous system. A false star, and around it, thin strands of gravitational resonance, already burrowing into space itself. One sudden break, one final death, and they would snap across the warp lanes like cracked glass. She could feel it ticking. The Emperor moaned. "I can't hold it." "You don't have to," she whispered. She inhaled, and then exhaled, and pushed her own biofield into the matrix. The starlight in her veins ignited fully now, tracing her skin with gold. Her heart stuttered once, then twice. The chamber lights flickered. Systems across the Imperial Arc began showing phantom readings. False gravity shifts, ghost signals, star maps blinking in and out of phase. Juno screamed something behind her, but the sound was distant. Muted. Inside the bond, Elira wasn't in the ship anymore. She was inside the pulse. A place of collapsing stars. Silent screams. Code written in light and time. The Ascendants had created something horrifying, not just a detonator, but a philosophy made into fire. Their machine didn't just destroy space, it rewrote meaning. If it triggered, even memory would die. Warp lanes wouldn't just collapse. They'd twist. Histories would vanish. Civilizations would forget they ever existed. It was surgical erasure, and she was the scalpel now. One flick of weakness, one moment of doubt, and everything would dissolve into nothing. She dug deeper, tethering her consciousness into the pulse, creating feedback, a counterhum, a false rhythm, bleeding into the real one. The pulse stuttered. The parasite screamed, and then it began to slow. Not stop, but falter, like a clock losing seconds. She opened her eyes. The chamber was quiet. Juno knelt nearby, whispering prayers. The Emperor had lost consciousness again, but he was still breathing. The warhead was disarmed. Temporarily. "How long?" Juno asked, voice barely a breath. Elira tried to answer, but she coughed instead. Her lungs felt full of ash. "A few days," she rasped. Maybe what? Maybe less. If the Ascendants detect the delay, they might trigger a backup. Then we run. We warn the systems, gather fleets, shut down the lanes. They'll never believe it. Then we make them." Elira smiled faintly. "You always believed in people more than I did." "No, I believe in you," Juno said. "And if you can hold this, I'll raise hell across the stars." Elira nodded, her eyelids fluttering. Her pulse synced with the Emperor's now, every beat tied to the parasite's artificial core. Juno stood and left the room, already barking orders to the ship's comms AI, preparing a broadcast, hacking into long-range emergency bands. Alira lay back against the floor, and for a brief moment, she closed her eyes. She drifted somewhere else. Not unconscious, not quite awake. She was floating through stars that hadn't been born yet, walking paths of ancient starlight, woven like threads between timelines. A voice spoke from the dark. "You can't hold this forever." She didn't answer. "You are delaying entropy. Nothing more." Still, she said nothing. The voice grew colder. "You cannot stop ascension." "No," she whispered finally, "but I can make it wait." And waiting for an enemy built on inevitability was agony. The star pulsed beneath her palms, slow, ancient, and sick. Alira no longer sat in the healing chamber. She was somewhere else now, deeper, her senses unspooled like threads into a light that wasn't light, heat that wasn't heat. It was neural living. The Emperor's core, yes, but also the parasite. A fusion, a binary mind burning in a cage of decaying starlight. Her own thoughts were whisper echoes, riding on the edge of something far vaster. Then it pulled her in. The transition wasn't physical. It felt like drowning in someone else's life. The first thing she saw was war. Fields of shattered moons. Suns bleeding plasma like open wounds. Human ships, sleek and jagged, dancing through enemy fire with terrifying precision. She felt the Emperor, not just as a body, but as the soul behind those wars. The burden of command. The way his victories broke him more than his defeats. He hadn't wanted to be a god. He had simply obeyed the weight of history, of expectation. The memories shifted. She saw peace. Treaties signed in golden domes. Children named after his ceasefires. Species he once called enemies kneeling in respect. Empires bending not from fear, but hope. Then came betrayal. Faces from his council. Familiar. Trusted. And behind them, like ghosts in silk, the ascendants. Not zealots, not soldiers. Architects of collapse. Their creed echoed through his memory like an anthem. Rule the stars by controlling the power within them. She saw how they embedded themselves, slowly, patiently, into his courts. They planted seeds. Parasites. Ideologies. Not just in flesh, but in law. In worship. And when the time came to light the fuse, they didn't even flinch. They had always known he was the detonation. She felt the Emperor's grief then. Not for himself, but for the billions who had followed him with trust, only to be turned into coordinates in a collapse equation. He had resisted. Too late. Alira moved deeper, not down, but inward, into the fusion point, into the parasite's source. And there, waiting in the quiet between pulses, was a voice. Male. Familiar. Alira, it said. Her breath caught. She turned. He stood in the light like he had never left. Same sharp features, same impossible calm in his eyes. A lab coat that shimmered with threads of stardust. "No," she whispered. "You died. You burned in the Argus breach. I saw it. You saw what you were meant to see. You lied to me. I evolved." She tried to step back, but there was no ground. No air. Just mind space, his, hers, and the Emperor's, all folded into the pulse. "You always healed," he said gently. "That was your flaw. Every fracture you stitched, every system you saved, just delaying what had to happen. You made this," she said. "You built the parasite." "I did. And it's perfect." Her voice trembled with rage. "It's murder." "No, it's nature." His expression didn't change. "You think collapse is cruelty. It's not. It's efficiency. Pressure must be released. Stars must go dark, so others may shine." She stared at him. "You sound like them." "I taught them." Her heartbeat fluttered. "Why?" "Because I saw what the universe really is." He raised one hand, and behind him the stars twisted, becoming maps, equations, DNA strands. A cycle of limits. Empires rot. Heroes fade. But entropy is honest. "You're destroying everything." "I'm pruning." She tried to reach for the bond, to break it, to retreat, but his mind met hers again. Not with force, but with memory. Their memory. Sitting in Titan's observatory, watching storms drift through Saturn's rings. Debating physics and poetry. Kissing between equations. whispering dreams about healing the galaxy together. She had loved him, and now he was the pulse. You could have changed it, she said. You had the mind to cure stars. I didn't want to cure them, he replied. I wanted to set them free. You killed billions, and billions more will live in what comes next. No thrones, no wars, just survival. Simpler, stronger. She clenched her fists, starlight sparking in her veins. Then why are you here? Why speak to me? Because you can still choose. Choose what? To let it go, he said. Let the Emperor die. Let the pulse free. You'll die too, yes. But you'll go knowing you didn't delay the inevitable. You fulfilled it. No, you're tired. I see it in your blood. The resonance is already fraying. You can't hold it much longer. Then I'll hold it until the last breath. His expression faltered, just a flicker. You can't stop the collapse. But I can stop you. She flung herself into the core. The parasite shrieked. It wasn't a sound. It was a memory unraveling, a code being challenged from within. Her body convulsed in the chamber, golden filaments now threaded with deep red. Juno screamed her name from far away. She didn't stop. She pushed into the signature, the sequence he had left as a backdoor. A failsafe built from his own neural patterns. She had known him once. She knew how he thought. The parasite buckled. The fusion destabilized. His voice, once calm, now trembled. Don't do this. You'll collapse the interface. I am the interface. Alira. She reached into the heart of the false star and rewrote it. Not with code, with choice. She cut the sequence loose from the warp lanes, severed its gravitational hooks, left the parasite stranded, still dangerous, yes, but no longer connected to the chain detonation. A bomb without a fuse. The collapse was paused. Her vision flickered. The neural bond cracked. He screamed once. Rage, loss, something close to grief, and then vanished like a dream woken too suddenly. The star went quiet. She opened her eyes. She was back. Burned. Shaking. Eyes bleeding light. The Emperor gasped beside her, alive. Stable. Juno was sobbing into a compad. Alira, she asked. Are you still here? Alira tried to smile. Yes, she whispered. Is it over? She closed her eyes again. No, but the collapse. It's paused, but he's still out there. He's alive, somewhere in the lattice. Juno's voice was cold now. Then we hunt him. Alira nodded weakly. Later. For now. For now, we breathe. And for the first time in days, the stars outside held still. The stars whispered as if they remembered. Alira hovered in the space between flesh and fusion, her pulse syncing with the artificial rhythms of the Emperor's decaying core. The parasite was no longer just a threat. It had become aware of her, and it was listening. Your mind is louder than is now, it said from inside the current of thought that hummed through the Emperor's body. Its voice was human, too human. She ignored it and focused on the star map inside the Emperor's nervous system, fractured, glowing, beautiful in its agony. Every crack in his chest echoed with collapsing galaxies, a storm waiting to be released through warp lanes like a neural virus. The chamber trembled. Outside, fleets had begun to move. Systems were blinking offline in sectors across the Arkansas warp lanes were destabilizing. The countdown had silently begun. You don't have much time, the parasite said again, more softly this time, almost in awe. And yet, you hesitate. She didn't answer. She was inside his neural starlight now, watching his life like a symphony of memories stretched across light years. His guilt bled like fuel across everything. The wars, the betrayals, the false peace treaties. He was not innocent, but he hadn't deserved this. Juno screamed from the med pit outside the chamber. Alira, pull back. Please. You're slipping into phase decay. Her body convulsed in the outer world, but Alira didn't flinch. Time was thick here like oil. Each second stretched as if begging for her to choose something different. And then the Emperor's mind stirred. Alira, his voice was like a planet breaking apart in slow motion. His image emerged, young, then old, then shattered again. He was aware. Not completely, but enough. I can hold it, he said. I can carry the parasite inside me. Lock it. Bury it. No more collapse. No more death. But I won't return. Elira blinked through tears. You'd be nothing but a vessel. Forever awake. Forever alone. I deserve that. No one deserves this. Silence. Only the beat of collapsing time remained between them. Elira felt her own heartbeat fade. Her bioresonance was failing. The longer she stayed connected, the more her DNA was imprinting itself onto the parasite's matrix. She could overwrite it. Her genes, mutated to sync with stellar frequencies, could reprogram the parasite. Not destroy it, but bind it. Cradle it inside her essence like a living firewall. But she would never return. Her body wouldn't survive the rewrite. Juno's voice cracked over the comms. Don't do it. Elira, let the galaxy burn. They exiled you. They left you to die. Elira finally spoke, barely a whisper. It didn't exile me. I walked away, to remember who I am. She looked at the Emperor's fading consciousness. His body had become part machine, part cosmic matter, part tomb. The parasite floated near his heart like a false star, pulsing, patient. You loved him once, the parasite said suddenly. The man who created me. Elira didn't move. The parasite knew too much. I can show you his final message, it offered. A flash. The Terran scientist, her lover once, standing beneath the rings of Saturn, recording something into the ether. If you're seeing this, he said, then the collapse is inevitable. I didn't do this to destroy life. I did it to force evolution. You, Elira, you are the hope. But hope needs a spark. The recording ended. You are that spark, the parasite echoed. One breath from you, and the new age begins. Or ends. A choice. If she extracted herself, the Emperor would die. The parasite would activate. The chain collapse through the warp lanes would begin. Black holes would bloom like fire across the galaxy. Billions would die. Civilization would end. But a new form of life might rise. Or she could rewrite it. Use herself as the seal. Let the parasite feed on her resonance. Cycle endlessly through her genetic loop, stabilizing the Emperor as a living containment field. She would die. He would live, but never rule again. Elira reached into the core. Her mind burned. She felt every pulse like a supernova behind her eyes. Blood vessels burst in her fingers. Skin cracked with light. She focused. She remembered. Her mother's lullabies beneath a Terran sky. Her father teaching her to pulse sync with binary stars. Her first patient, an alien child, scared and dying. She had never been made for power. She was made for healing. And healing always hurts. Juno, she said. Her assistant answered immediately. I'm here. Seal the chamber. Don't open it again, no matter what happens. No, Elira, please. You can't. This isn't the end, she said. It's the beginning. But not the kind they wanted. She opened her chest plate. Her fingers touched the neural plug at her spine. Her DNA sequence was already unraveling, spreading like a bomb through the parasite's tendrils. Her code was taking over, writing a new language in the language of stars. I don't want to forget who I was, she whispered. You won't, the parasite said, voice shaking now. You'll become what you've always been. A rhythm, a pulse. The Emperor's breathing slowed. The parasite's light dimmed. Elira's body stiffened, but her mind expanded. She became the seal. Not a god, not a martyr. A boundary, a memory. And as the core stabilized, the warp lanes flickered back to life. Across the galaxy, the collapse halted. Time stood still, then resumed. Juno wept outside the door, her forehead pressed to the seal. Elira, the chamber stayed silent. But somewhere in the Emperor's chest, a new heartbeat had begun. Silence. A kind of silence not born from emptiness, but from something fulfilled. Inside the containment chamber, the star core hummed with quiet stability. What had once been a battlefield of collapsing timelines and parasitic power was now a sphere of soft, pulsing resonance. The Emperor's body floated at its center, not dead, not alive as he once was. Something in between. He no longer moved. His skin now shimmered faintly with the patterns of ancient Terran constellations. Maps of Earth's old sky traced across his chest like memory. The parasite was gone, or perhaps no longer a parasite at all. Just part of him, tamed, sleeping. But Alira was nowhere to be seen. Juno stood outside the sealed chamber, knuckles white against the glass, eyes locked on the glowing silhouette inside. Her voice had cracked 100 times calling Alira's name, even knowing she wouldn't answer. The med console pinged softly behind her. A new file had appeared. Encrypted. Voice signature matched to Alira. Juno didn't touch it for hours. When she finally played it, the room dimmed. Alira's voice emerged, quiet but clear, like the echo of a lighthouse across stardust. If you're hearing this, I'm no longer what I was. I'm not gone, but I'm not Alira in the way you knew me. I became the equation. I became the rhythm. There was a pause, long, thoughtful. We aren't meant to rule the stars. We are meant to listen to them, to harmonize. Every empire that's fallen forgot that simple truth. Power without resonance collapses. Juno's hands trembled. Alira continued. Don't look for me. I'm everywhere now. In the lanes. In the cores. In the pauses between light and breath. And then her voice ended, not with a goodbye, but with a single hum. A tone that matched the Emperor's chest exactly. The message self-erased. Not for secrecy, but for finality. Across the galaxy, things began to shift. The warp lanes, once unstable and volatile, now blazed brighter than they had in centuries. Transit times halved. Crashes stopped. Even the rogue sectors, long lost to decay, were reconnecting, thread by thread, like an old web remembering how to breathe. Scientists from 9 systems couldn't explain it. Religious leaders called it divine. Others whispered that Terran technology had evolved beyond comprehension. But no one could trace it back to her. The Emperor's chamber was declared sacred ground. Pilgrims came, hoping to speak with him. He never responded. He just breathed, slow and steady. A man turned monument. Diplomatic envoys begged him for counsel. Treaties were signed in his name. War stopped under his silent gaze. But his eyes never opened again. He was no longer ruler. He was resonance. And somewhere far from the Ark worlds, a little girl on a violet-skied planet sat under 2 moons, her eyes lifted to a patch of stars that flickered slightly brighter than the rest. Her grandmother had told her stories. They say a Terran healed the sun, she whispered, holding a crystal shard in her small hands. But no one remembers her name. The girl smiled anyway, like she knew a secret. And above her, in the night sky, a distant cluster of warp signatures flickered, softly, gently, like a heartbeat. Not of war, not of conquest, of balance, of listening, of legacy. And somewhere in the oldest code of the warp network, buried deep in the star lanes, a single phrase echoed in the frequency only few could hear. She is still singing.